Well, good morning. How are you today? Welcome to this edition of Tech Talk with Zyxel. My name is Tri Nguyen. I am one of the senior product managers here at Zyxel. We're just here to, I've been part of Zyxel for about 15 years now. I've been in the network industry for about 20. I hope you guys are doing great today. We have pretty much this forum is kind of a weekly interactive discussion. We try to run it almost every Tuesday, depending on schedules, but typically on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Really just to provide a quick interactive kind of informational session. I don't have my black or my green screen thing going right now just because we have some technical issues with getting that to work through the Zoom interface here at a decent quality. So it's not quite there yet, but we can do it this way, and you can still have some interaction. But really, what we want to do is talk about who Zyxel is. We're going to display or talk about the topic at hand, and really kind of open it up to then a live Q&A. If you guys have a mic ready, if you have that set up through the Zoom interface, make sure you have that ready. If you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A section, and at the end, you can raise your hand. I'll unmute you if you'd like to ask it live, if you want to raise your hand for that live Q&A section. If not, if you don't raise your hand, I can just talk and answer those questions in the Q&A section just as they come up. So feel free to just type in those Q&A sections, those questions as we go along. And also don't forget to follow us on Facebook there as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just dive right in just to the quick introduction of who Zyxel is as a company. Like I mentioned, I've been here 15 years, but we're celebrating our 30th year again, just for some of you, you've seen this already, but with 30 years of networking expertise. We were established in 1989. We have 1,500 employees worldwide. 700,000 businesses use Zyxel solutions in 150 different markets. Over 100 million devices are currently connecting people worldwide right now. And we offer a comprehensive commercial portfolio. I mean, obviously, we offer the telco products and it's also the consumer, but what I'm focused in a lot is on the commercial for what partners really typically install. It's a comprehensive range of products that range from really the end-to-end solution, unified network experience. We do this through, of course, different integrations and innovative technologies to kind of secure and make it easy to use for both like the IT people and also the end users, especially those who are maintaining those kinds of systems, like for example, like you as managed service providers or partners and installers. We offer a full range of UTM appliances, full threat protection, firewall functionalities, VPN encryption, managed cloud access points, and also standalone access points with controller functionalities, Ethernet, LAN, fiber switches to support really kind of the basic or even the more complex applications, including layer 2, layer 3, with and without PoE. And of course, gateway routers that do just the functionalities of like hotspot or just VPN functionality. And then all of that can be managed on their own, can be managed through the GUI interface, through a central managed virtual software, or also in the cloud. So we kind of have all ways of being able to make that connectivity. So today I wanted to cover basically what I call UTM 101. What is UTM? How do we use it? Really kind of the back ends of what it is. We're going to also take a look at the demo, kind of a GUI of one of our products that provide UTM to kind of give you an idea of the things that you can configure. So we want to see how we can use them in different applications. I'll talk about those different applications, and that's what we want to talk about today. So if you have any questions regarding it, if you're not sure, this is the time for you to interact with us and have some questions if you're not sure what UTM is. But on the base level, UTM is basically like a network appliance. It stands for Unified Threat Management. It's just a fancy term that we've been trying to educate the market for the last 5 or 6 years since this kind of concept came out. Firewalls are not just firewalls anymore. They're not good enough, pretty much what we say. But they typically exist as an appliance or a cloud service that provides protection from security threats that are out there on the internet, but also on the inside. So it offers multiple layers of services and features to do that. It could be a security appliance, like a hardware appliance that gets installed that protects like outside to inside connectivity, or even inside to outside connectivity. Cloud UTM services now are available to kind of centralize it. All the traffic gets sent to the cloud, and then is manipulated or then scanned and then sent forth to its way. Either way, these firewalls include, application intelligence, IDP, um, denial of service detection, prevention, antivirus, VPN, and URL filtering. Those are kind of the main components that kind of make up what a unified threat management product is. Why is security important? Of course, we are all subject to the public internet. When you plug in a computer, if you've ever plugged in a server into the public internet, or you plugged a firewall into the public internet, immediately, if it's a firewall, you're going to get bombarded with port scans, zombie hosts looking for different hosts to try to infect. So those zombie hosts are opening up thousands of sessions. Ransomware, malware, all those things are looking for a way to get themselves injected into the system to take it over. So this used to not be the way that, used to be a lot safer out there, until, of course, everything that tends to be good ends up becoming used in a negative way. So people are always looking to exploit things and trying to break things or trying to cause havoc. But even, there's a lot of industries that also have requirements for these kinds of security to make sure that your network is always secure, like through PCI compliancy, through HIPAA. Industries like retail, healthcare, government, finance, of course, those are all regulated in the fact that they will audit you to make sure that those networks that you are servicing, or the networks that you are using for any kind of those services, are also secured. So a lot of people actually ignore the fact that they might be vulnerable, and they usually kind of wait till something catastrophic happens before they take action, right? Usually you're getting the phone call from a customer saying, I just got infected, I just got attacked, I need something that will help prevent this, right? So they're dealing with after the fact. But I think it's our job, like yours and I's, to really educate the market, educate the end users as well, in the fact that they need some sort of security, especially in this day and age. And like, people just take that just a matter of that, they just take that just approach where it won't happen to me, right? Everybody just has that feeling where I'm too small, I'm just a small business, I just have my internet connectivity, and it won't affect me. But those are the people who usually are the ones that do get hit. And when it hits, a small company, it hits them hard, because they may only have like 2-3 man team or whatever, and their one server gets attacked and then hacked, and now their whole kind of livelihood or productivity from the business standpoint is now kind of shot. So making sure that doesn't happen is a real big thing. So it's up to us to, again, to educate them that, and make sure that it's it's costly, of course, to do the kind of the security up front, right? You have to get a security system, and you have to do some sort of upfront cost there, but it is worth it, because the time that you spend to fixing things, or just replacing equipment, or replacing servers, or reinstalling them because you got attacked, that just takes even more time. So time is money for sure. So like I mentioned before, unified threat management is all about dealing with all the threats that are out there in a unified manner, right? It makes sense. You have to have then multiple layers, because there's not one feature, not just one function that can handle everything. You have to have the ability to manage different types of attacks, because they are all kind of different. So we'll take a look at some of the details of these UTM threats, some of the main ones that we typically sell, or that we typically use, or customers really find benefit from. And so, of course, the threats come in all shapes and sizes. In order to manage all that, you have to have defense systems that deal with all of that. So both from the outside in and from the inside out, all of that needs to be come into play. And you have to block and, of course, stay up to date with the threats, because the threats will change. It's ever changing, always going on. And of course, to look at any of these threats, you can't just use a basic SPI firewall anymore. SPI firewall pretty much just blocks ports, but you can't block ports these days, because a lot of the threats and stuff are beyond just using a specific port. It is adaptive. And so you actually have to look at its signature, its behavior, what kind of packet it is, or even its behavior of who or what it's connecting to try to make that, to make kind of that connection between, is it a threat or not? And so it calls for really a deep packet inspection. So you got to do a layer 7 scanning on the application level of every packet that goes through. And that way, you can scan pretty much all the things that are coming through, all the traffic that's coming through. And of course, doing so, everybody who uses a computer, when you're doing more packet scanning, deeper packet scanning is going to cost more CPU, basically, more clock cycles, more brain power for the device to look at all of these, packets moving through. So typically when you enable UTM functionality, we all see this in the data sheets. You get a data sheet that has a great SPI firewall, and then the moment you look at the UTM, it's probably about a tenth of that speed. And that is normal. But on top of that, those speeds that you typically see on a data sheet, they're the max theoretical throughputs, meaning that that's the most you can push through the largest packet size. It's done in a lab scenario to see what its breakpoint is, right? So that's where it's max theoretical. But real life packets does not come in just one size. It comes in all shapes and sizes. And so each one of those packet sizes, smaller packets, cost just as much as a large packet, but it has to deal with more of them. So a lot of more of packets inside a certain time frame means that it's going to slow down even further. So generally, the kind of rule of thumb that we use is about 50 to 60% of what's on the data sheet is probably what you're going to see, from a speed test. And now speed test, actually, if you go to speedtest.net, and you do your test, you actually have an option to choose a basically multi-connection or a single connection, because that also changes as well. When you're doing UTM and you're downloading a file, let's say, you are just a single session, single user. So you may see maybe a slightly less throughput than you would expect, maybe from the 50 to 60%. But if you have your friend or your coworkers also downloading, so there's multiple sessions going on at the same time, the overall throughput of the entire system is going to be higher than what your one single system is. Typically, that's what you're going to see. But speedtest.net actually lets you choose from a multiple and single kind of single connection now. So that's pretty cool. But of course, there's some workarounds when you're dealing with speed, right? And especially nowadays, everyone's speed is now getting upgraded. Everybody wants faster speeds. I myself wanted faster speed as well. So it's easy to call up, one of the cable providers or your internet service provider and say, hey, I want to upgrade my speed. And now they're offering 100 meg, 300 meg, even more, up to gigabit in some places. So what happens is the firewall, which was perfectly fine before, is now a bottleneck because it no longer can handle that fast of a speed with its current security capabilities. So what do you have to do? Well, one of the common ways is to disable security features. I don't recommend that. You bought a security device, you have to use it as, to keep yourself secure. I like to use that analogy. You buy a home security system, you top of the line, you have everything in, your cameras, your doorbells, everything like that, and you go and just turn everything off. So it's kind of useless, right? If you turn off some of those things, then you're vulnerable. So why would you do that with a networking system? Or the other option is you have to buy a higher cost device. So you have to upgrade your device to something that can handle that higher speed. And when you're talking about this kind of scale, the jump between like a 50 meg connection to all of a sudden a 300 meg connection, you're talking, you could probably do 5 to 10 times the price of what you currently are paying for your router just to get the speed that you need in order to keep up with that, your WAN speed. Or the other option is you can live with lower speeds than what you paid for, right? But that doesn't make sense either. I don't think any of those are acceptable solutions. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to cover a little bit more about kind of each, kind of the main UTM features that we talked about. So again, unified threat management comes in like different flavors and different functions and features. And these can all be enabled on their own, or they can be enabled all at the same time. Of course, it depends on your application, what you're trying to do, and what's already in your network, whether or not you want to enable, one or many of these. But typically, everybody who buys a UTM box will just enable everything. Might as well protect yourself against everything that it's able to do. The first one is anti-malware. This will block you against viruses, malware, ransomware, anything that has a signature that your device, would do when they're doing a virus scan. This will do it live through the gateway itself. It can actually identify and block over 650,000 viruses, at least the latest threats that are provided by the signature provider. And it's basically the first line of defense. So when there are zero-day attacks, there are new threats that are released out there onto the internet, it is made known and sent to our devices and updated so that we can then block against it. Now, the common misconception is that, well, I have an anti-malware, antivirus solution in my UTM box, so I don't need to get any virus in my laptop, so I could save money there. That is not the case. Our product or any kind of gateway system is made to handle that first line of defense, but you still need your own virus software on the endpoint itself to make sure that any older viruses and things like that are handled, or even when you do get infected with some of the older viruses, that it's able to do the clean and remove and quarantine of those viruses, because our system box can't go into your computer and make those kinds of changes. So we're just sitting there blocking kind of that, again, that first layer of defense, almost, you know, like a little, yeah, like a little dome of defense for your network, for your computer. And typically a lot of the virus softwares on your laptop, they're set to update or check for updates once a week. You know, usually I think by default it's on like a Wednesday or something like that. Seems like it's always the same time, but they usually check once a week. And so during that week, if there's something new that comes out, our box can handle the protection of that to buy you time in order to update your signatures on your local devices. Now, intrusion detection is a kind of a tricky kind of service. It actually inspects patterns, anomalies, behaviors to see what kind of connections are being made, if those kind of seem out of place or being connected to either malicious places or known malicious areas, things like that. It's looking for Trojan connections, remote connections that are trying to like SSL queries, things like that, that are trying to hack into your system using different kind of ports, different kind of vulnerabilities. So intrusion detection is part of our application, like IDP, application control. It's all kind of meshed in between in the same kind of functionality. So that's what IDP does. Typically, in most like PCI or retail HIPAA or healthcare, they require some sort of intrusion detection because they need to know if somebody is trying to get into the system using some sort of backend, using some sort of way to get into there. So that's one of the main functions that are there. Layer 7 traffic scanning, again, like the previous slide, it's kind of just the overarching idea that we are doing deep packet scanning to identify on the application level, on the packet level of threats. And this can also be done at in encrypted traffic as well through SSL inspection. And so there's not as many applications that use SSL inspection because it requires for our device to become kind of the SSL middleman. So we become an SSL proxy. So you have to install certificates on the devices that you're trying to secure that talk to the firewall, and then the firewall talks and makes the connection to the encrypted site. So it can encrypt and decrypt whatever the packet is so that it can inspect it before it sends it along its way. So that's not as convenient as you would expect, but if as you would like. So it doesn't work very well in like a hotspot scenario that you're trying to do that kind of inspection. If you're doing a hotspot, you're kind of leaving it open anyway. So if you're really truly locking it down, then of course you have to lock down the devices themselves. So that gives you access to the certificates that you can then install into the device. Now, the other main function is content filtering. This particular service is one of our best sellers because it's the #1 way to block YouTube, Facebook, any kind of social media. Uses URLs and also DNS entries in this cloud database. And it can block both HTTP and encrypted HTTP websites because it's blocking by the domain name. You may be, maybe in the past, may have noticed that, hey, at one point we were blocking the content filtering on our appliance was working just fine. And then all of a sudden it stopped working and people could get to Facebook, people can get to YouTube. And that's when we actually got a lot of calls from folk that were like, hey, what's going on? Like people could just get past. Well, a few years ago, Google decided to move to automatically rerouting people to their secured web page, HTTPS. And that broke pretty much all of the content filterings that were doing the inspections on the traffic, on the content of these web pages, because all that content became encrypted. And so no longer could, be decrypted. And in order to do it at that time, you had to use SSL inspection, which became messy because then you again had to put the certificates onto your devices in order to get it to do that decrypt and encrypt. But we added enhanced our content filtering to allow for also DNS blocking. So now it will block both HTTP, TTP, and HTTPS for those, as well as offering safe search and GeoIP enforcer. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that works later on. Application security, this is all about identifying, it's kind of part of that layer 7 scanning and intrusion detection, where it can then identify these packets. They can categorize it about what that application is exactly, and then decide what to do about it. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And of course, the last feature there that I just skipped ahead was just sandboxing, and we'll talk more details on why sandboxing is important. So we use some critical partners here that provide us with that unified threat management functionality that's integrated into our box. So we use some of the experts out there in the field to provide us with what they do best. And so our antivirus is provided, the signatures are provided by Bitdefender. The anti-spam, the content filtering functionality is provided by Siren. The IDP and application intelligence is provided by Trend Micro. So let's dive a little bit deeper about, again, like I said, our number one seller is content filtering, or URL and DNS blocking. So if you're looking again, how do I block Facebook, YouTube? This is the feature that you want to do. It basically uses the user will query for the website. So they'll type in, facebook.com. The firewall will then check for in its local database. If it doesn't have it cached in its local database, it will then query to the cloud. So it will check in the cloud, hey, is this site either malicious? Is it part of what categorization is it belonging to? And that cloud responds back with, hey, this is a social media Facebook website. So it gives you that information, and of course, based on that information, it takes some action. So if your profile says, hey, I'm going to block those kinds of sites because it's inappropriate or it's not productive, then you can. Or of course, then you can block malicious websites as well. So if a certain site gets compromised, the cloud database is updated or informed based on whatever threat management system is in that cloud there. And it can tell you, well, it's a malicious site, so it will block you from going there. So it kind of prevents you from getting into botnet or a lot of those kind of control malicious malware type sites that may exist out there that have been compromised. So really, it's a great way to do that. Now, of course, it's March Madness. I don't know how many of you are basketball and March Madness fans, but this is typically one of the time frames where we get a lot of calls about, hey, we have people who we want to block to watch March Madness, via our internet connection. Can you do that? What do we have? And this is exactly the product that you would use in order to do that combination of doing web page blocking. You can block applications with your IDP and application control, so you're able to block that. Malware blocker, again, it's a signature-based. This is part of the antivirus functionality. So it's a signature-based system. It will scan based on those signatures that it has within the device firmware, and those signatures are updated, and it can check every hour for any new updates. And it can actually prevent or look as well in compressed files. So if you have zip files or RAR files, those kinds of things, those as they're passing through, we can actually scan them and take action on if something malicious is in that compressed file. It can also look at web content and other types of common file types via email, FTP, or through the web. So when they're downloading, uploading, that kind of thing, we can also scan that kind of traffic. And of course, all these features are very customizable. So you can choose, which segments, which users, which profiles get these kinds of threat management. And of course, all of these threats are optimized in a cloud database. It's provided by a Zyxel security cloud. It leverages a global database, and so that way it can provide kind of zero block on malware. Now, how does application security work? Application control, again, like I mentioned, it can block malicious connections. It can identify different types of applications, so like, for example, YouTube, Pandora applications, even Office 365, Netflix, or any kind of BitTorrent. So if you have some trouble out there where you're saying, somebody on my network is constantly using BitTorrent or some sort of torrent sharing system and opening up thousands upon thousands of sessions, or they're actually a seeded client that is opening up thousands of sessions, you have the ability to block that kind of application via this application control. Again, you can block what's bad, and you can actually allow what's good, because once you've identified it, you can categorize it into, hey, this is Office 365. I'm going to prioritize it in the through the internet, whereas things like YouTube and Netflix, I can block it, or I can even throttle it. So let's say you want people to be able to use Pandora or Spotify, that kind of thing. You can actually throttle them and say, well, during these time frames, during lunch hours, outside of office hours, you can use those services, but inside it gets blocked. So again, you have full control of how to manage those apps and who has access to it. Now, how does IDP work? Again, it's both kind of a signature base with anomaly and behavior. The signatures then matches patterns, things like buffer overflow, web type of attacks, SSL injection type attacks, any kind of malicious exploits. Whereas the anomaly analyzes on the protocol level and looks at kind of traffic anomalies. So just the behaviors where maybe the connections, the source code, the source connectivity going to which kind of device, it takes that into account. And then behaviors, so identifying bots and calling home packets that may come from CNC servers. So basically, a malicious piece of software that is trying to dial home back to a hacker server in order to make that connectivity back. A lot of ransomware basically uses that kind of ability to gain access to your network. Now, conventional UTM blocks things that are known. So usually it knows something that is good to go, and on the other hand, it will allow things that are good to go, and it will block things that are either suspicious or bad, right? But in between, there is a lot of kind of gray area traffic, and it can't really decide whether it's good or bad, because it's kind of just, well, we don't know. So that's kind of the gap that UTM in itself has issue with. And of course, in order to conquer that, we've developed a sandboxing capability within our firewall system to do some smart cloud intelligence. So unknown threats may come into the system. We actually put that into the cloud. When it's unknown, we emulate it. So those packets and patterns are then emulated, executed in that sandbox. We identify whether they are malicious or not based on its behavior in the cloud. So the AI helps to decide that. And of course, now that it's known, it actually makes a signature to make it known and then shares that across the cloud. So basically what I like to call it is it makes the unknown known. So that's what we do in the cloud in order to combat unknown threats using our sandbox utility. So then that gives us peace of mind, because now installing something that has that multi-layer protection, it provides a complete defense against network threats. At the same time, you want to get also visibility and alerts on how those kinds of threats. So we do have a software and we do have a system that allows for you to do that as well. So what is the best defense? Well, defense is to put something there. Depending on your needs, we have solutions that are VPN for encryption. We have cloud-based solutions that are standalone for the cloud using your Nebula. You can use our on-prem USG, which is our UTM, fully loaded UTM. And of course, our newest advanced threat protection, which is our ATP series, powered by our sandboxing technology as well. So that's what we want to present to you, is that is the best UTM option. It not only includes the UTM functions that in the advanced threat management with that multi-layer protection, but then it also includes that sandboxing to be able to protect you against those unknown threats. And it's also at the same time able to produce that kind of level of security with all of this at a very high throughput with all those services enabled. It's very cost effective as well, so it fits the right price point for those small businesses without having to spend that 5 times to 10 times the price to get to this kind of speed and functionality. So it provides the sandboxing, the web security like content filtering, the application security, malware blocker, intrusion detection, geo-IP enforcer, which is basically our IP blocking, and can do that up to 1.2 gigs with all the UTM enabled. So that would give you 600 to 700 or even more, depending on your application, of real-world throughput. And so that is probably one of the best options that you can have. So if you're interested in our ATP series, we have a whole line of ATP series, ATP 200, 500, 800. They're basically scaled on different performances. You can see even on the lowest end, that includes 1 year of our security pack. At full UTM speeds, it's 450 megabits of theoretical throughput. So 250, probably around 250 or so megabits per second of full UTM in a real world kind of environment. And it's very cost effective. So you can check with your sales representative if you are a partner to see what the current price is. But it's also available online too. But as a partner, you get much deeper discounts through that. So make sure you reach out to your sales representative for information of that. And of course, I mentioned earlier that visibility is very important. Visibility on what's going on the network. You want to protect against it, but if you protect against it, I mean, from, most people are saying, well, nothing is broken, nothing is hacked, so everything is good. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So, but this is where you get to show value as a partner, as a managed service provider. Using Secure Reporter or any of our cloud tools allows for you to get centralized reporting on what's going on your security appliances. So you get a really clear picture of what's happening on it. You can then schedule comprehensive reports. You get the visualizations, you get the alerts, things like that, so that you can show value to your customer and saying, hey, you know what? This past month, with those services is enabled, you were able to block X number of viruses, botnets, threats, scans. These are how many files that got scanned. These are the web pages that I went through, right? So it really leverages that information that we send to the cloud when you have this enabled to give you kind of that comprehensive portal, either for your customer to also go and check out, or again, like I mentioned, you can create comprehensive reports that then come out in PDF form that can automatically email your customers once a month and be able to, again, show value in the single pane of glass here. And I mentioned our partner program. If you're not a partner with us, you can sign up to become a partner. It doesn't cost you anything. We're very aggressive with our partner program. It's free to sign up. There's no entry level costs, things like that. And you start actually at the silver tier. And the only thing you have to do to maintain the silver tier is just have qualifying sales of 6K per half year. So that's basically 12K a year. If you can do 12K in the 6 months there, you can move up to gold, where you can enjoy additional margins. So these are discounts and rebates at the distribution level. So whatever your distribution price is now through DNH, Ingram Micro, Synix, Wave, you can get 16 to 20% off that. So really it gives you an advantage to be able to still meet your customers doing the typical check on Amazon type pricing. You can still meet that and still probably make 25 points, basically 25 points or more of margin selling even at Amazon pricing. So people always say, well, I sell this particular brand because I just have them go buy it off the internet and I just go and do the install. You can actually sell Zyxel and make money on that back end as well. So you're still doing the install and you're making money on the hardware. So why not do that? So enjoy that. You get access to lead referrals as a Gold partner, access to our sales engineers, where we get on the call with you to try to build out what your customer needs, all the functionality, give you kind of a good, better, best option for that, and also access to advanced replacement. Now, I wanted to dive into the interface as well. So I wanted to do a quick dive into that, but I think one of the interfaces, I think the IP address of that particular device is not available at the moment where I'm at. I think we were updating our internet connection, so it's possible that it's not available. So I don't have the demo right now, but if you like for me to jump on with you on a kind of on a one-on-one level, reach out to your sales rep and we can go and do a quick demo of the interface to show you kind of the GUI interface of the device, and kind of walk you through how to configure it, how where things are, and then also get you maybe a demo unit or an NFR unit for you to try and test out. We really believe that right now we have a huge advantage on this ATP series device because there's nothing really out in the market right there that is of the right price point, but then also doing the right speeds and of course the right security level. So there's we're starting to get a lot of momentum. So hopefully you guys can jump on board too if you haven't been taking advantage of any of that. So right now, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have. So if you have a question you want to ask me via live, let me know. Raise your hand. I will unmute you. I'll call upon you, and you can ask me live. If not, if you don't want to ask live, you can just go ahead and type the question into the Q&A section, and I will answer them if I don't see a hand raised. So feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to participate that way. Just make sure that your mic is available and unmuted so that we can do that. Right now, I do have one question from Donald. Thank you for your question. Is there an easy way to set up Nebula gateways in 2 separate cities and create a VPN between them? Right now, with Nebula, we are working on, if it doesn't exist already, I have to double check, but we are working on more of the one touch or kind of, click, choose 2 sites in order to do that. I know our VPN series, which is outside of Nebula, uses Orchestrator. So if you're really looking to building VPN, on multiple locations or larger sites, I would go with the VPN series because it does have Orchestrator, which still gives you the cloud functionality. It gives you basically it's Nebula Orchestrator. It's not necessarily the Nebula system itself, but it manages. Then you can do the point click and say, hey, these 3 sites are part of a group, and it will build the VPN tunnel information for you. So you don't have to worry about that. What do I suggest? Peter asked, again, thank you for your question, Peter. What do you suggest as a replacement for the USG 50? So what I typically say is most people, there are kind of a one-to-one, mapping between devices. But I always nowadays have to ask, when you're at a USG 50, which is probably, 6 or 7 years old now at least, it's all about application and what is happening today. So you kind of have to ask yourself here, Peter, if what are they doing now? What is their security requirements? How much bandwidth do they have currently now? And maybe in the next year, do they have availability to upgrade to the 200-300 meg? If you were just going to do a straight one-to-one, then of course the USG 40 or USG 60 would be kind of the replacement to the USG 50. But of course, nowadays, if people are jumping to 100 megs to 300 meg connectivity, then I would have to say you need to go to an ATP 200, right, to meet that. So again, it depends. If they only have a 50 meg connection and they have no plans for the next 3 to 5 years to ever upgrade, then you can go with the USG 60, and that would be perfectly fine. But I would suggest, especially with the sandboxing capabilities and some of the other botnet blocking that is available in the ATP, you're better off going with basically the newest technologies that's out there. Now, of course, the budget may come into play, but if you think about it, the USG 60 right now with UTM is probably, and compared to the ATP 200 with full bundled gold package there that's included in the device, you might be looking at a delta of less than $100. So for that $100, all of a sudden the throughput is now, probably 3x, the 2 to 3x the UTM throughput. So that's what I would personally suggest. And that's what I've upgraded my USG 60 at home to, is an ATP 200. So Joe had a question. Thank you, Joe, for that question. Can Nebula gateways do VPN to an individual client? Right now, it's pretty much set for more site-to-site, just to make those site-to-site VPN connections. I believe they're working on making it available so that you can do the client device VPN IPsec to it. So as long as it's IPsec, most people typically, when they're talking about individual clients, are talking about SSL. I believe you can still build an IPsec tunnel to the Nebula gateways. Now, again, if you're looking for more of a VPN application, you can always move to the VPN series itself to do that kind of functionality. The Nebula gateway are going to be enhanced, though, for sure, if it doesn't have it already. So I'll just have to double check on the roadmap to see where that stands. We also have, I think this week, or actually in a couple weeks, we actually have a Nebula webinar on April 18th, as you can see there, that you can also ask that question as well to see where the roadmap is for that functionality. We're going to be covering, Sean, my counterpart, will be covering about what is Nebula, going to give you the whole rundown on that. I see Martin on the list there. I just want to say, hey, Martin. How's it going, Martin Bry? If anybody else has any questions, feel free again just to use that Q&A section. If not, it looks like Erlis, is it Erlis Miller would like to say something. Go ahead, I unmuted you.
Yeah, so my question has to do with content filtering policies and integration with Active Directory. Is that functionality available now in the ATP series? Because in the UTM series, it had not been originally.
It should be able to do that. We do have some policies that allow for you to build it into the Active Directory. So it depends on how the policy is, but we can check with you and our support team to double check that. But from my understanding, that it is there. Thank you, Erlis. Any other questions there, Erlis?
No.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? If there's any questions, let's see. Let's see. Peter also asked in the chat. So 100 megabits. Would you suggest a 300? When you talk about 300, what do you mean by 300, Peter? Are you meaning like an 8? Because we have on the ATP side, we have ATP 200, 500, and 800. If you're talking about a USG 300 would function there. But I think from the cost and the functionality that you can get with the ATP series, an ATP 500 would probably fit the same similar price point as a USG 310, but be better performing. Has more sessions, again, has better security functionalities with that sandboxing functionality in there. Now, there is a question. I don't know, maybe a quick raise of hands. Any of you guys using the hotspot management functionalities in a USG? We don't usually see a lot of people, buying the licensings for them, and we've seen a lot of, that functionality being just, available as not necessarily a hotspot where they're doing terms of service or anything like that. They're just making a separate Wi-Fi that's just open, available for clients to access. So I don't know if any of you guys, if you find that as an important feature, but that's really the main difference between a USG and an ATP from a feature functionality. The USGs still have that hotspot functionality, whereas the ATPs currently do not. Now, if there is demand, if we see, there's a push that you need an integrated ATP that has that hotspot, then we'll probably port that over. But for right now, if you want the hotspot function, you'll still use a USG. You can use the ATP to do the higher speed scanning and threat management while segmenting out the hotspot customer to going through that hotspot management instead. So use the two-box solution right now if that's what's necessary. Alrighty then. Well, I guess that might be the end of this edition of Tech Talk. We have a new partner intro in a couple weeks, I think on April 2nd. If you're new to Zyxel, I'd hope you to join. I invite you to join that one because we do cover at a high level everything about Zyxel, all of our product lines at a high level, so you kind of get a quick, introduction to everything that we provide, or a lot of the things that we provide, and what to focus on. A lot of our key top sellers and things like that. So it's basically an hour training there. April 16th, we have SD-WAN 101 if you want to learn more, like UTM 101, what SD-WAN is about and how to use it, how to replace it, how to replace MPLSs and using what applications. Join that one April 16th. And like I mentioned, April 18th, we'll have a Nebula, a webinar. And again, May 7th will be another new partner intro. So we do the new partner intro basically once a month, the first Tuesday of every month. And then of course we have other topics. And of course, if you have any thoughts on things you would like to hear about, learn about from Zyxel, from myself, drop me an email. My email is tri@zyxel.com. Let me know, what you're interested in, what you're seeing in the market, what you want to hear about, how what we think about, whatever topic that is, what's going on in the market. Let us know. We'd love to be able to put that into one of these tech talks. And if you are a partner and you'd like to just kind of come on as a guest to tell us about your solution, how Zyxel has worked with you, or how our product has helped you in a specific application scenario, again, I'd love to bring you on as well. We can have a Skype call, basically through this interface, through this forum, so we can share with other partners and peers here that are selling Zyxel now. So until then, we thank you for being Zyxel's partner. We hope to be your networking ally, and we will talk to you again soon. So have a great rest of your day. We'll see you around. Thank you.